Today on the X-Files, we visit a manga that's been recommended and voted on countless times already, and now it's finally time to unearth it. The skyship-filled dystopian adventure manga, Red Sprite. Full name, Red Sprite. Start date, August 29th, 2016. End date, November 28th, 2016. Total chapters, 14, compiled into 2 volumes. Tomohiro Yagi would make his debut by winning the runner-up prize in the 2011 Tezuka Awards for his one-shot Iron Curtain, which would then be touched up and remixed for Jump Next in 2012. Also in 2012, he would submit another one-shot named Goblin Knight to the 2012 Golden Future Cup. It wouldn't win, with Hakugo Idol winning, becoming Hime-Doll, although Goblin Knight would see itself become a series a few years later in 2014, after some assistant work was done on Retsu Date-Senpai, and one more one-shot named Iron Knight was made, shifting the end title to being Iron Knight, finally debuting in issue 1 of Shonen Jump in 2014. Iron Knight is this post-apocalyptic manga where suddenly various people transform into demons, throwing the world into chaos. The main character then transforms into the titular Iron Knight, and we get this quite fun, edgy battle shonen manga, which I'd love to make an X-File on someday. Yagi would not be deterred though, as he would serialize his next one-shot in the 3rd volume of Jump Next in 2015, which would be Red Sprite, leading him quickly to his 2nd serialization a year later. Red Sprite begins in the Edenia borderlands at an abandoned church where an orphanage has taken root. Here we see our protagonist, Tatsu Fremd, as well as his friends playing outside, but they're quickly taken inside to study science and social studies by their caretaker Duran. Here we learn a bit more about the world and that it's in stages of rapid industrialization thanks to a newly discovered energy source known as plasma arrow, which generates far more energy than other fossil fuels like coal or steam. Airships have become synonymous with these new advancements and are a core feature of Red Sprite's world. The kids also learn about these airships, and Tatsu pretends to be a captain, with the kids coming up with an airship called the Red Sprite, which they would all pilot and possibly find the floating island of Magonia with, a sort of promised land where they could all live happily on one day. All of this is interrupted when skyships suddenly send missiles hurtling towards the church though. Masked men then rush in and start taking the children, calling them specimens, human plasma arrow. Duran does his best to fight back but is only able to flee with Tatsu, and it's revealed that the governing body of this country uses humans as batteries, with Tatsu and his friends being experiments designed at birth to be super batteries. After this revelation, Duran then sacrifices himself to awaken Tatsu's plasma arrow, infusing his own life energy into his in the hopes that one day Tatsu can make a difference and save his friends. 6 years then pass, with Tatsu invading a skyship led by the very person who took his friends away years ago, and now with tons of training under his belt, he easily dispatches them and a bunch of goons to get the location of one of his old friends, Mono, who is powering a giant mobile fortress known as the Great Atlas Tank. He then gives a speech to some freed battery slaves, and then he steals a big red airship. With it, he aims to go straight into battle to a victory parade that's heavily guarded to save Mono. We get a speech from Edenia's supreme leader, aka dictator, David Atlas. Tatsu then frees Mono and goes to declare war on Edenia, using the legendary floating island of Magonia as a name for his new nation, which he aims to be run by human plasma arrows for human plasma arrows. Using his red lightning, he instigates a spark of rebellion, inspiring hope in his fellow comrades by giving them a name and banner to fight behind. And with that, the Red Sprite soars off into the sky, with our goal being to rescue all of Tatsu's friends and liberate the human batteries of the world. We get some introductions to the side cast and workers of the ship, as well as a look at all of its facilities, which is cool, and I'm glad all the detail here has been considered. It also has these big multi-purpose arms, which remind me of the ships from Outlaw Star. And with the ships having such a big focus, we also get to see skyship battles, which take a lot of tactical consideration, and I think this really helps the manga stand out somewhat since it's not just the usual human versus human affair. Tatsu and friends outmaneuver Commander Bristol, who is chasing them in the Excalibur, another ship, with Tatsu then boarding their ship and proposing a ceasefire. In response, Bristol is exceedingly cartoonish in referring to Tatsu and co as livestock, and I can see this working, but it reminds me of how overblown U19 was with its handling of its antagonists. The villains can get over the top to the point where they cease to be really engaging and believable. After dumping the Excalibur in the sea, the next arc then sees the Red Sprite travel to the nation of Nalbion to find the next friend of Tatsu's, Alfred. Due to its unique position, Nalbion isn't yet a part of the Edenian Empire, and Alfred is currently acting as a protector there. We get a fight where it's revealed there's more variation to Plasmaro powers than we first thought, with Alfred being able to use it magnetically, and there being superpowered Plasmaro enemies named Crusaders which have been sent to take out high-impact targets. A whole group of these is shown off, but Tatsu and Alfred make short work of them. Like, they literally beat them all in a single spread. Although the two are reunited, Alfred won't just go with them because now he serves Nalbion and its queen Beatrix. Red Sprite does something interesting here where this kingdom is a monarchy-based nation, and maybe future countries would serve to introduce alternate ruling parties, showcasing their pros and cons perhaps. I'm spitballing ideas here, but by this point, Red Sprite was very close to its end. A lot of its time here is spent exploring Nalbion, its incoming fate from the encroaching Edenian army, and Alfred's relationships with the country. He has a found family or found country kind of vibe going on here, and it's shown very rapidly to us. It's quite hard to care when it's all built up so briskly, and so much time is also devoted to Tatsu just arguing with him about them being friends, and it's a little annoying, and I think it wastes a lot of time that could have been used elsewhere. An Ash soldier is summoned for the final battle here, which is a cool concept. Old warriors from the past are revived with the sheer number of dead corpses that hold Plasmaro in them, although in the end he's just a creepy strong army man, and we don't really get much time to see what kind of personality he has or what he's even capable of, so it's not the greatest execution in my opinion, but it is a neat little final fight. They beat him swiftly, Magonia and Nalbion then create a military alliance, and Tatsu and the Red Sprite head off again in order to liberate the world and save more friends. We get an adventure continues kind of ending here, and there's no real satisfying conclusion. For Red Sprite, I think the main issues are pacing and tone for me. It has a ton of unique ideas worth exploring, and its setup is very enticing. Airships, gradually liberating the world and gathering friends, and some darker aspects like human batteries. Perhaps that's part of its problem though, it embraces all of these darker elements and its villains' darkness so fast that the impact of them wasn't as strong as it could have been. Making a story about attaining freedom is all well and good, but I think showcasing more of the freedom or having a balance between fun and seriousness would have made it much better. I was reminded of One Piece a lot while reading this, and I really wanted to see the Red Sprite crew interact more and have fun, but the world we're presented with is far too self-serious and constraining for this, I think. And retroactively, this makes Tatsu come across as a pretty annoying and tone-deaf character, screaming about saving the world and finding his friends all the time. These are a more personal set of grievances for me though, and I think its pacing is its clearest issue, as it glosses over what should be pivotal moments in the story very quickly. Like with Mono, the first friend Tatsu saves, who we barely get any info post her little arc, and then she's ironically treated like a glorified power source most of the time. I guess the freedom for her to choose how she uses her abilities is good, but still I barely felt like we got to know her, and this goes double for most of the cast. It is tough to do so much in 14 chapters though, but I do feel like Yagi backed themselves into a corner by blustering through so much so quick like they did. By the time it ended, Jump was pretty full, but also rapidly attempting to shed its skin and grow too, having lost a lot of its older manga in the last few months or years, like Bleach, Kochikame, and soon Gintama. And the dreaded 6 match was just around the corner, seeing the debut of U19, Dr. Stone, and a bunch of other things. Jump were pretty ruthless at this time, throwing out anything that didn't quite work, which included Love Rush, Red Sprite's batchmate, as well as Devil's Plan and Ole Golezo, the 2 manga that would take their places. So many manga got axed in such a short time in this period, and it was a hectic scramble to find some new heavy hitters for the magazine, so it's no wonder Red Sprite got cut. What does everyone else think about Red Sprite though? I'm pretty curious, as a lot of members in the Discord have been dying for me to cover this one for a while. Firstly, we have Mask, whose main point often led to Red Sprite introducing interesting concepts like airship battles, ash soldiers, or the plasma arrows, but reveals info about them too quickly and doesn't expound upon them in any interesting way. I definitely agree with this, and there was another parallel to One Piece, with Mask thinking Alfred and the General were similar to Zeph and Sanji, so I'm happy I wasn't the only one comparing it to One Piece in some ways. Sirius also really liked the ideas and face value elements Red Sprite presented, but criticizes it for telling us about its world rather than allowing it to be fully immersive. I really like this line they wrote in reference to Red Sprite's storytelling. Each explanation about some aspect of the world has the energy of reading off a fan wiki excerpt. This just really nails how the series feels to read at times. It really does feel like you're reading off of a fan wiki. Millie found Red Sprite serviceable mostly in its ideas and character writing, with it introducing a lot of cool stuff but expositing about it rather than actually exploring it in any meaningful or interesting ways, though they do admit it gets better in its Nalbian arc with Alfred. Combat is criticized here, as well as Millie stating that it's difficult to read the flow of fights, especially with characters being so fast, their pathing becomes unclear. And I failed to really mention the fights much in my story recap section, and that's because they just kind of happen very quickly and Tatsu's just zipping around everywhere. They are pretty unclear and pretty boring. I wish it focused in more on maybe the skyship fights instead, since that's its far more unique and interesting aspect. Perhaps it could have capitalized on that if it was allowed to run longer. Logan C enjoyed elements of the series like its power system, international political conflicts, and the airships, but did find it was hurt by its quick pacing, which brushed over characters' unique conflicts like Mono and Alfred, with them having little time to resolve their arcs, if you can even call them arcs at all. This also extended to the friendship between the orphans, which Logan felt could have been tackled better. A lack of impact was stated to be another main detractor for the series, with battles being pretty basic, never challenging Tatsu and ending quickly. I think this also extends to most of the manga and its supposedly impactful moments as well. Tatsu reuniting with these long-lost friends should feel much bigger than it was portrayed as. I also agree that it does feel like Yagi is rushing towards the series' best moments at the cost of blitzing through the setup required to make these moments feel impactful. Propaganda brings up One Piece in comparison again and likens the two stories surrounding Revolution. Interestingly though, we get a Luffy versus Tatsu comparison, which highlights that Luffy, while avenging or taking down oppressive figures, never fully renders judgment since it's not really his place to do so and that he has no desire to do it. But by contrast, Tatsu is a representative of an oppressed group and his judgment feels inconsistent and unimpactful. Tatsu talks the talk, but his actions feel largely unimpactful and his plans are pretty bare bones. I had a lot of comments this time, possibly the most I've ever had for an Axe File video, and generally the criticism was very focused. People liked Red Sprite conceptually, its ideas of airship battles, ash soldiers, and human plasma arrows were praised, but its execution of these were found to be lacking. It exposited too much and was hindered by its fast pace. Character antagonists, characters with no depth, and a lack of representation among minority groups were all other common criticisms that also popped up here and there. I tend to like to highlight as many people as possible in these videos, but for the most part everyone was in unison with sniffing out its potential faults. And finally we have TG, or Random OP, with a whole essay on Red Sprite. It's fairly extensive and you can clearly tell it's something they're passionate about, even delving into some volume extra topics, which I thought were interesting, like the different weapons the characters use. While a lot of what is covered is positive, with them citing the world building being engaging and them wanting to know more, I was happy to see critique too, which did match up with what others were saying. When covering these cancelled manga, the majority do falter in many areas, and as much as I do try to point out why manga may have been cancelled here, I think the more important thing and the most appealing aspect of making these videos is reading about what fans of each manga have to say about them. Someone out there will eagerly write a little essay about their favourite cancelled manga, despite it being flawed, and well, cancelled. And thanks to TG, I have a great example of one here. One thing I also really liked about this piece of writing is they also went into their thoughts briefly on what the other characters might be like, since we never actually got to meet them and were only teased them. And I do agree that Nikolai Andriguchi Volgin is a pretty great name.
Want a Sprite Cranberry? Sprite Cranberry? Want a Sprite Cranberry? Want a Sprite Cranberry?
Post Red Sprite, Yagi hasn't gotten any new series in quite a while, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been working. Releasing Forget Me Not Detective, a one-shot in Jump's 51st issue of 2018. This followed a boy detective with the ability to erase people's thoughts if he looks at them in the eyes. Next, Yagi would appear again submitting Encounter with Ignorance to the Jump Short Frontier in 2021. This is a short 16-page story about a woman's encounter with an alien in space. And then finally we come to February of 2024, where Yagi released Hitona in Jump Plus to great fanfare. Pretty much everything I've read from Yagi response-wise has been very positive, and there's even a lot of fan art for Hitona, which I stumbled across while doing research. It's also a very good one-shot, being about a human landing on a planet full of kimono, animal people, and the political, social, and ethical impacts this has on their society. There's some great commentary on flipping the script for furries, which I feel is indulgent but well handled. I really got the sense that Yagi was trying to tell the readers, hey, I'm into this, don't be too judgmental, just put yourself into my shoes, which was used to great effect in the story and bolstered its themes of acceptance. I highly recommend checking it out as it has a full English translation up on Mangadex. Other than this, Yagi has also worked under Hitsuji Gondaira on Mission Yozakura Family, so it seems they still have a fruitful relationship with Jump, and I hope we end up seeing them again in the near future. And that's Red Sprite, full of grand ideas and elements which I'd love to see again in the magazine, from a manga that might take a bit more time to explore them though, and hopefully Yagi does that when they ever return. But what do you think about Red Sprite? Have you read it? Do you like it? Would you like to see Tomohiro Yagi return? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more and checking out the channel, since I have a ton of other videos just like this on other Shonen Jump X manga. But if history is more your thing, I also have a whole series of videos dedicated to exploring Weekly Shonen Jump and all of its older manga, beginning in 1968. Also, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps a ton and pushes me to make better videos. You'll also get some cooler rewards like access to exclusive polls and a Patreon podcast where I chat about all sorts of other media and manga I enjoy. And you'll also be thanked at the end of my videos with you getting your own little doodle at the $3 tier like Kinocha, Jade, Kaizoku Gairu, Soroquel Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Fako, Yellowtail, Lay Sloggett, Chris P. Bacon, Chohenshin, Full Metal, Unquestionable, Weeby Boy, Wurzel, and also AB, Vaquadraws, Otaku Gamer X, Deadpan, and Shy Monkeys at the $1 tier. Thank you all so much for being patrons. And as always, thank you so much for watching, remember to be kind, and take care.